Hello everyone, so today what we're going to be looking at is a more casual deck here, the Cyberdark Dragon, featuring the brand new Therion support, finally bringing a little bit extra love to this deck as well. We were playing this in casual. This is not a competitive deck, but it is a really fun deck. You can attempt to play either in lower ranks on ranked or in the casual ladder. You're not going to be making much headway with this in Diamond, but you can certainly play it at lower ranks. It's a really cool concept, building on our previously explored Cyberdark and Dragon deck, bringing out one of the coolest boss monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! Unaffected by all activated effects, can attack a whole bunch of times, it's got 5,000 attack, brutal. Bringing this guy out on your first turn, or even if you're going second, is ultimately disgusting. So we are playing it pretty much a little bit heavier going second than what we were in the past. I figure that's simply the best way for it. The deck doesn't put up very much interruption or anything going first, so you may as well commit to the blowout for going second. So I've been playing it like this, and it has been amazing. And the casual ladder at the minute is filled to the brim with people attempting to learn ABC Dragon Buster. So if you're ever going to be going in and trying to use this deck to any sort of extent in casual, now is the time, because you can abuse the likes of the Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon and the Chimera Tech Mega Fleet Dragon to amazing effect, stealing their Masquerina, stealing their ABC pieces, taking their actual Buster Dragon. It is nuts. It's really fun. I'm not going to ramble too much about it right now. There is going to be a card for card profile at the end, and we're going to be talking about some of the main combos inside of the deck. It's sitting at 41 cards because we have the Dragon Buster Destruction Sword in here. This is really cool for the extra deck lock, however you're not always able to set it up. Sometimes it's a brick, so you can cut this if you want, but I feel like having it in as even just a one of is, it gives you a lot more power if you're forced to go first or if you want to go first. Being able to lock your opponent out of the extra deck is amazing. So yes, this is the deck. We're going to do card for card at the end, so if you want to see that, stick around and watch the gameplay, because the combo it's not the simplest thing in the world. It's not that complicated either, but you're going to want to sort of pay attention to your sequencing, so you're going to watch, sort of do as I do, watch what I do, and pick it up from there, but I will discuss it at the end as well. So if you want to sort of keep tuned for content like this, where we're abusing some of the new cards, some old classics, having a bit of fun with everything, as opposed to always taking it 100% seriously. We do really competitive reviews as well, like, you know, you saw over the last couple of days. If you want to stay tuned for any of that, absolutely subscribe and leave a comment to say what you would like to see, and whatever decks you think can take really good advantage of Regulus. There's a ton of really solid machine decks out there, like Earth Machine by itself is an amazing archetype. There's Machina, which is amazing. So there's a whole bunch of decks out there that take excellent advantage of Regulus. But we're testing out some of the lesser known ones. So if you've got a lesser known deck that abuses Regulus, let me know down below and we'll have a look at it just to see if it's actually worth playing. And with that, let's get into game number one. Already getting into our first replay. This one is going to be nice, short and sweet here. We're playing against, well, they go for Foxytoon off the bat, and it looks like they're playing Orcus, yet another machine deck that may take very good advantage of Regulus. So our opponent's going to be extremely combo heavy here. They're bringing out their punks here. I'm going to search for their trap card and link off into Cherubini. Cherubini then is going to dump the Water Enchantress to the graveyard, which they will then activate to grab the Rite of Aramis-Seer. Rite of Aramis-Seer, of course, being able to get them an adventure token, although I'm not sure if they used the normal summon this turn. I don't think they did. They're going to bring out Girsu, which is going to send the Orcus Nightmare to the grave, which is then going to send the World One to the grave. World One will then activate to special summon a banished Orcus Knight, the Orcus Nightmare. Then link 2 off into Galatea. Galatea then, whenever it's summoned, is going to basically grab back the... it's going to grab the field spell, sorry, by shuffling back a banished monster. The Orchestrated Babel will basically make all of his Orcus effects in the graveyard quick effects. So they do. So he's going to go for Dingirsu, bringing it out. He's going to activate Gizmek Orochi here, banishing the top 8 to summon Gizmek Orochi. And then he's bringing out IP Masquerina. So basically the play here is, it doesn't look like much, but it does give him a quick play Link Summon, as well as the ability to use his Harp Horror, his Nightmare, all of these monsters in the graveyard as quick effects off of his Orchestrated Babel. So he's got quite a few plays here. We top deck into the Buster Lock, which is not a good top deck, of course. We're going to go for Disc Coliseum, grabbing Regulus. Now we're going to go Cyberdark Cannon, discard. He's going to chain his Nightmare here, which is interesting, as Nightmare's going to try and boost up his Masquerina here for some reason. he's going to send these Symbol Skeleton. So that basically gives him, sorry, that's the reason. So he's sending Orcus Symbol Skeleton to the graveyard, which will give him the ability to resurrect his Dingirsu whenever he wants, which will then send a card from our field to the graveyard. We're going to go Cybernetic Horizon here, ditching a Dark monster from our hand, a Light monster from our deck to grab a Cyber monster, as well as the Cyber End Dragon from our extra deck. So we're ditching all three to the grave, which is an amazing card. Honestly, this card is disgusting. And we're able to grab Cyber Dragon Core from that. Now, we also sent Cyber Dragon Hers to the graveyard, which allows us to search our deck for Cyber Dragon. That's why we play the one of each. Then we summon the Cyber Dragon, and we fusion summon out the Chimera Tech Mega Fleet Dragon. The reason we did that is he no longer has any materials in his field to use as Masquerena. He will soon, but we're messing up his timings basically. We're forcing him to change how he's going to play. At this stage, because he has no quick play response, now we're going to go Regulus, equipping on the Cyber Dragon from the graveyard. The monster in particular doesn't matter. But because he wasn't able to activate his Masquerena, that was the perfect time for us to go Regulus because he couldn't do anything about it. Now we have a negate ready for his Dingirsu. So he goes for Dingirsu. Now we're going to activate our Regulus, ditching it to the grave to negate and destroy the Dingirsu. No luck for our opponent there at all. Well, sorry, it doesn't destroy, it just negates. And we're going to normal summon our Cyber Dragon Core. We're going to search our deck for Cyberdark Realm. And now we're going to fusion summon out the Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, using his machine monster on his field. Our Cyberdark Realm searches Claw, and then Claw will search for a spell or a trap card. Normal summon Chimera, search Powerbond fusion summon into the Cyberdark End Dragon, and game. And he knows it. He didn't have the ability to summon anything additional to try and abuse his Ivy Masquerena. He was just out of options, which I thought was really great. Being able to use the Cyber Dragon engine alongside the Cyberdark engine to sort of dismantle an opponent's machine-based board is really cool, as well as setting yourself up to summon the Cyberdark End Dragon. He didn't let us finish the plays, but I just really wanted to show that one off. So let's get into game number 2. Already getting into game 2 here, we do have the Lightning Storm in hand, which is of course a very powerful card, but we're up against ABC. So machines versus machines here. Now, do I think for a second that Cyberdark is better than ABC? Absolutely not, but we're going to see what we can do against these guys here. He's going to summon out his 2B Buster Drakes, which is not a once per turn search, meaning that is a problem. He double searches, and he's got that Union Carrier as well to grab basically whatever card he wants. He's able to grab his A Assault Core, and I can only imagine a C Crush Wyvern. Yep, there we are. He sets himself up for his ABC perfectly. Union Carrier then grabbing the Photon Orbital grabbing Galaxy Soldier. We covered this whole combo in my video yesterday by the time you're seeing this. So he's going to ditch the A Assault Core to go into Soldier. He's going to grab another Galaxy Soldier. Using that, he's going to ditch the C Crush Wyvern to summon his second Soldier out. That gives him... Oh, sorry, this isn't even... oh, that's right, I remember this now. So he didn't go into Nova, he went into this, which allows you to search your deck for any Earth machine monster. So he gets to search his deck for something like Regulus. Now, of course, we don't want to be dealing with a Regulus, so we take this opportunity to hit him with that Infinite Impermanence. So that means we're not dealing with an Infinity at the end of the day, which is excellent. Our opponent's going to go with the Dragon Buster out to the field here, which is awesome. And he summoned it in attack mode. Lightning Storm is the reason you don't summon your cards in attack mode. We're just going to go for the Lightning Storm right off the bat. He's going to use his ABC Dragon Buster's effect here to basically dodge the Lightning Storm, but it does mean we don't need to put up with that banish for the rest of this turn. He does have a bit of a defensive wall, but that's fine. We can get over a defensive wall. That's a-okay. He's going to equip on Union Driver from his deck. We're going to go Cyberdark Cannon. We unfortunately get hit with that Ash Blossom, but to be honest, there are worse cards to get ashed in the deck. That's fine. We can eat an Ash, that's no problem. Cyberdark Claw then will be discarded to grab Cyberdark Realm. We're going to use Cyberdark Realm to grab us a card for discarding off a Horizon. We want to keep Chimera in hand, so we're going to ditch the Edge, ditch a Hers to search for Cyber Dragon Core. Core then can be normal summoned to search for a card. Well, Hers first will special summon, search for our Cyber Dragon. Now here's where we make a mistake, right? Right now, we have the ability to go into the Fortress Dragon, which would have been perfect. We have 5 materials on our board, we go into the Fortress Dragon. What we do is we mess this up by going Chimera first. So this card's text says that you can only use Dragon or Machine Cyber monsters as fusion material this turn. So that really screws us over. It was a big, huge misplay on my part. We could have used our Saber Dragons on the field and all of his monsters to go into the Chimera Tech Rampage, Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, and we could have won the game. So that's a huge misplay on my part. We do, however, get to search our deck still for Power Bond. We link 2 off into Union Carrier. For you to use the Power Bond combo effectively, you need to have 5 Cyberdarks on your field, in your hand, or in your graveyard. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 now because of Chimera is sending one from deck to grave. So we're going to Power Bond, banish all 5 from the graveyard to summon out the Cyber Darkness Dragon. Now, using the Cyber Darkness Dragon, it's going to equip on the Cyber End Dragon, and by tributing those, we can fusion summon out the Cyber Dark End Dragon. This card is busted, unaffected by activated effects. It is absolutely huge. We're going to equip onto it a monster from our deck, or at least we would attempt to, except we get hit with the Droplet. Droplet does slow us down quite a lot, unfortunately. It is going to negate our Union Carrier. We were hoping to use the Buster Lock there, but to no avail. Unfortunately, that simply wasn't going to happen. He gets to add the B-Buster Drake back from his graveyard to his hand. We're going to steal the A Assault Core from his graveyard. Then we're going to special summon it to try and go into Seeger here to secure as much damage as we possibly can. That was probably not the best play from ourselves. We probably should have just kept the A Assault Core equipped, but we were trying to combo off as best as possible. So again, not the most stellar performance here you're seeing. But again, it's all a learning curve. I want you guys to pick up from this and learn from the mistakes that I made. Union Driver then special summons itself out. He's going to go Therion this Coliseum, grabbing Regulus from his deck. Regulus coming out, of course, is a huge problem, but he's going to go into the Underworld Goddess of the Closed World. We were still somewhat confident because our Cyberdark End Dragon is unaffected by activated effects, but it can still be tributed. The extra deck Kaiju coming in. Again, I mentioned this card in my last ABC video. This card is nuts. The Underworld Goddess is absolutely crazy in ABCs. It is so easy to abuse. He's going to bring out his Therion here by equipping onto it a Sea Crush Wyvern. He's going to banish 3 from the graveyard to summon out his ABC Dragon Buster. And from here, he's just going to banish our Seeger and beat our ass. And it's pretty much as simple as that. 18 over Union Carrier and 6,000 to the face. So really cool plays from our opponent there. It was a little bit of back and forth. We definitely messed it up. We could have won that game very easily. We could have won the game by going into the Fortress Dragon, but we didn't. So what are you going to do? Cry about it? I mean, that's just life sometimes. You mess things up, but that's something that I want you guys to take away from that. If you're going to be doing the Fortress plays or the Mega Fleet plays, you need to do them before you use Chimera. Otherwise, it's not going to work. But anyway, that's it for game number 2. Let's get into game 3. Already getting into game 3 here. We've got the Therion this Coliseum in hand. That's good. Our opponent here is actually playing Dark Layer Infernoids, which is very interesting. They grab a Pathfinder here from the top of their deck. They're going to tribute it to grab another copy of Layer of Darkness. And then they're going to special summon out their Patrulia. So this is very interesting because our opponent now has the ability to tribute dark monsters, and his field spell makes every monster in the field dark. So that is a little bit difficult for us. We're going to need to be careful around how we play this because this will out our Cyberdark End Dragon. It's unaffected by activated effects, but because these guys tribute his cost, he can still be tributed. So we top deck another copy of the Disc Coliseum, which isn't fantastic. We grab our Regulus. We're going to Saber Emergency here just to see if he has anything. Luckily he didn't, meaning we can go into Saber Dragon. Our plan was if he didn't tribute us, we were simply going to beat over his monster. So it's great that that happened. We're going to go Core Search, Cybernetic Horizon. We're going to go Cyberdark Realm to get us a card worth discarding. Well, we go Cannon discard to search another Cyberdark. We go Edge because we're going to discard it off of Horizon. So we discard one, send hers, then we're going to grab the Chimera. Hers I don't think has anything to search here in this situation. We're going to go Regulus, grab the hers from the graveyard to summon itself out to the field. We've got another negate on board, which is perfect. Cyberdark Realm summons out Chimera, ditch the Disc Coliseum, grab Power Bond. Now we need to link 2 off into Union Carrier because when Chimera is sent to the graveyard, it will send another Cyberdark from deck to grave, which means that we're basically fulfilling our obligations by using the final bit here with the Cyberdark Keel. The only problem is this is still on the field, not in the graveyard, so we did screw ourselves over just a little bit. We couldn't fully extend into the 5 Cyberdarks, which is really unfortunate. But we're going to make it work here as best we possibly can. So We've got the Keel. Our opponent tributes into their Diablos. Diablos then using its effect to tribute our Regulus to return a card back to our deck, and our opponent doesn't know how much they just helped us. That was amazing of them. We're going to go Hers here to return Cyberdragon Core back to our hand. He destroys our Union Carrier by battle, which actually activates Therion Colosseum's third effect to recycle a Therion monster back to our hand from the graveyard. So he actually really helped us out there. By sending a Power Bomb back into deck, that means we have another one to search off of Chimera's effect, meaning we can actually recycle it and fully complete our plays. We top deck another Cyberdragon Core, which isn't, again, the greatest card in the world to top deck, but it's fine. We're going to summon out Regulus first thing, so we have that negate on board. We don't know what his back row is. We're going to go Cyberdragon Core. Again, we just grab Realm because there's nothing else really to grab. We're going to use it to grab Cyberdark Claw. Claw discard to get our Horizon. Just filling our graveyard as much as we possibly can. Horizon, ditch the Core, send the Claw, grab the Chimera, and then we're going to ditch a Cyberdark and Dragon because we're not going to summon two of them. We do run two, but we're not going to summon two. We ditch Power Bond to search Power Bond. Now it is active. Going to link two off into Seeger, which is pretty big. Then our Power Bond, banish 5 from the graveyard to give us our Cyber Darkness Dragon. Cyber Darkness Dragon, equip on Cyber End Dragon, then tribute for our Cyber Dark End Dragon. Our big beater is finally here. It's going to go in, it's going to take his Diablos out, boosted up by 2100 because of Seeger. Seeger then takes out a token, Regulus takes out a token. Seeger will basically boost up any of your machines by 2100, and then during the main phase 2 we steal his Diablos and equip it onto our Cyberdark End Dragon from his grave. So that is excellent. We took his boss monster, our opponent just gives up, swings in and finishes himself off 6100 to the face. So yeah, 100%. We made sure to wait until main phase 2 to grab a monster from his graveyard because we really wanted that Diablos to be out of commission. Typically these decks only play one copy of Diablos, so once you've got their one and only copy, it becomes very difficult for them to sort of bounce back, and given the graveyard recursion of Diablos, it's not really something you want to be dancing around with. But yeah, again, very, very good game, showing off Regulus, showing off the Cyberdark End Dragon, showing off the versatility. You absolutely love to see it. Let's get into game 3. 4. Alrighty, game 4 going second yet again. We got that double lightning storm, and it looks like we're up against Galaxy Eyes Photon, which is really interesting considering this is one of the first decks I ever built for real back when I was a kid. He's playing, right, so he's playing a weird deck, right? He's playing Galaxy Photon because, you know, he's got the Thrasher and everything here, unless he's just playing Thrasher as level 4 material. I can't actually remember. Again, these days, these games happened a couple of days ago. But he's got the Sea Crush Wyvern there, so he's obviously playing some sort of ABC hybrid. But he just ends his turn on Infinity. Infinity's not the scariest thing in the world. It is an Omni Negate. But we do have the double Lightning Storm, so we activate one. He protects it by removing a material. That's completely fine. You do you, Chief. I don't actually even believe we use our second Lightning Storm. I think we just hold on to it. Yeah, we do. We decided it's not even that big a problem. Right now, it's just a 2500 beater we can get over. Our Claw getting hit with Ash Blossom is really bad. We should have activated Cyberdark Realm first to eat the Ash, but we didn't. We're going to Realm to grab a Cannon discard to grab a Chimera. Is the only real one worth normal summoning unless you're in a rough spot. We're going to summon it, ditch the Lightning Storm to grab Power Bond. Power Bond is still kind of usable because we have the monsters, although I think summoning this Claw really screwed us over. Or no, we summon Claw and equip it onto Keel so that when we attack we can send the Cyber End Dragon to the grave. And it also sends Claw back to grave, meaning we should be able to use Power Bond now to bring out the Cyber Darkness End Dragon. The Cyber Darkness Dragon, and because we did that play before, we grabbed the Cyber End Dragon from the graveyard, equip it on, and then we can summon out the Cyber Dark End Dragon. So there was method to the madness. I just sort of forgot my own plays for a minute. So we're bringing out the Cyber Dark End Dragon. You love to see it. 5k, what are you going to do about it? We're going to steal a Sea Crush Wyvern from his graveyard, so it's one less buster piece for him to play with, and it means that our monster is unaffected by trap cards. He's going to bring out the Silver Gadget, resummoning the Sea Crush Wyvern from his hand. He's going to go into Union Carrier. Union Carrier then equipping onto his Sea Crush Wyvern Union Driver, which will then banish itself to grab the Bee Buster Drake. All of these combos you saw in my video yesterday, We're going to go into number 41, Baguska. That does in fact switch us to defense because it's not an activated effect that's doing so, which does make our life a little bit more awkward. We're going to grab our Regulus out to the field by equipping onto it the Cyberdark Horn. It is switched to defense, of course, so it's not the most useful play in the world, but we just want to wait and see what our opponent does here with the Baguska. Baguska drops the B-Buster Drake to Grave, and he's going to equip onto his Union Carrier now, his A Assault Core, which actually gives him enough attack points to beat over Regulus. He was a lot more direct there than I was expecting, so, I mean, makes total sense though. We top deck into Chimera, which again isn't super great for us. We normal summon it anyway, just again, we just sort of want to defend ourselves. We're expecting him to be able to do something to get rid of us. The Baguska is now out of material, so he switches it to attack mode. He's going to go into his ABC Dragon Buster. I believe here, yes, he boosts up his Dragon Buster by 1000 attack points with the B-Buster Drake, and he just attempts to beat over our Cyberdark End Dragon, but his own Sea Crush Wyvern protects us from his destruction, which is amazing. We're going to switch our monster to attack mode. We finally got the ability to attack. We steal the Sea Crush Wyvern just in case those face down cards are problematic. We normal summon Core, which is going to be a problem. Our plan was to use Core to summon out the the Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon, but now that its effect is negated, it's no longer a Cyber Dragon, meaning that's a bit of a problem. We link 2 off into Union Carrier. Chimera sending Edge from deck to graveyard. We're going to boost up our End Dragon by equipping onto it the Cyberdark Cannon, but again, he's going to end up attributing his ABC Dragon Buster to grab his monsters back. He's going to banish our Cyberdark Cannon with his Cosmic Cyclone, so he's limiting the number of times we can attack, although it's not limited to 0, so we can still wipe out some of his monsters and some of his life points. He's going to grab an A Assault Core to hand for follow-up, take out the Baguska, and we simply pass from there. Okay, if we had a swung into the Assault Core, he was simply going to recycle more cards back to hand. The Mad Lad top decks Union Hanger, which is absolutely crazy. Links 3 into Nightmare Unicorn. Nightmare Unicorn then discarding a card to return his own Sea Crush Wyvern back to his deck, while also activating the effects of B-Buster Drake and Sea Crush Wyvern, as well as the A Assault Core, all in his graveyard. So we will get to, in sequence, return a Union monster back to hand. He will get to special summon a Union monster from his hand, and then he will get to search his deck for a Union monster, as well as then spinning his Sea Crush Wyvern back to his own deck and taking it away from our Cyberdark End Dragon. He's going to equip the Union Driver, the second Union Driver, the Royal Rare, and then replace it with a Sea Crush Wyvern, link up into Access Code Talker. Now this is a problem because Access Code Talker is simply too big for the Cyberdark End Dragon to take on safely. So Sea Crush Wyvern then summoning out the A Assault Core, boosting his own monster up to 5300 and going into another copy of the ABC Dragon Buster. Yet another Dragon Buster matchup where unfortunately we are being handed an L on a silver platter. He for some reason banishes his Access Code Talker. I don't know why. If there was a reason behind that. Maybe he's just BMing, maybe he misclicked, I don't know. But either way, we top deck into Cyber Dragon Core here. We summon it, activate it with the Cyberdark Realm, which we then activate to search for Cyberdark Claw. Cyberdark Claw, ditch to the graveyard to grab ourselves Cybernetic Horizon. We don't have anything to discard, but we do have the ability to summon out the Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon using his entire field of monsters. And there's no chain activation or anything like that. It's just like a link summon. It's already too late by the time I've summoned it, but he does manage to grab his monsters back to his hand. The amount of advantage that ABC generates is insane. We leave him on 100 life points. I'm sure that looks familiar from the last video. And now we just need to wait and see if he can get over our monster, but again, he's playing ABC. Of course he can. The third copy of the Dragon Buster coming out here and unfortunately banishing our Fortress Dragon and securing him the win. So there you go. He only won this game because ABC was lifted from 2 to 3. And people say that semi-limit didn't matter. It mattered. It would have won me this game. But that's just life. Opponent played well for most of it. There was a couple of dubious decisions here and there. We did our best. We tried our best. But again, ABC is simply a better deck. But again, that's just the nature of the game. Let's get into the deck profile and we'll talk about at least the sort of theories behind this and what makes it so fun. Alrighty, getting into the deck profile then. So we're going to talk about the idea, some of the ratios, and sort of what our general plan for winning is. Now, just to simplify things down, let's ditch the unnecessary cards. We've got the, again, I'm going to call this an unnecessary card, the Dragon Buster card. Unnecessary. You've got the double Max C, you've got the double Lightning Storm, you've got the Call by the Grave, the double Droplet, and the double Imperm. So there's 10 spots you can go nuts with. Do whatever you want. So the deck basically here is the main deck separated into 3 different parts. Well, you could call it 3, it's mainly 2. There's of course your little Therion package, right? And then there's your Saber package. And I'm calling it Saber because the Saber Dragons and the Cyberdarks actually intertwine more than people give them credit for. So, how does it all work? Generally speaking, you want to utilize your combos to summon out the Cyberdark and Dragon. Your ultimate aim for the turn is that if you can resolve both Cybernetic Horizon and Cyberdark Realm, there is a really high chance that you're going to be able to summon the Cyberdark and Dragon. You're talking 80% plus. These 2 spell cards facilitate most of the action themselves. So they do. So the rest of your deck is basically built around getting stuff into the graveyard and searching for these spell cards. That's the idea. How exactly are we making that happen? Well, we've got a small Cyber Dragon package, and we've got the Cyber Dark package, of course. So Cyber Dragons, we've got a single copy of Cyber Dragon Hers. This exists purely to be sent to the graveyard from the deck off of Cybernetic Horizon. Cybernetic Horizon, you discard 1 attribute Cyber Monster from your hand and send another from your deck to the graveyard to search your deck for a Cyber Monster. So the idea is that you'll discard a Dark from your hand, because that's what you're playing the most of, and you will ditch this from your deck to the graveyard as your light. When this is sent from your deck to the graveyard, or sent to the graveyard in general, it will search your deck for the Cyber Dragon. Or if you have a core in your graveyard, it can also add a core from your graveyard to your hand. But yeah, this guy is here purely to be sent to the graveyard off of Horizon, and just really to search for your Cyber Dragon. The deck is built around going second, so being able to put a Cyber Dragon on board is pretty cool because you'll be able to either clear out their extra monster zone, or if you're playing against machines, you'll be able to clear out their entire board. So it just sort of depends on what's going on, and again, you can't go wrong with an extra monster on board. That's the idea. You've also got Cyber Dragon Core, which is the main sort of searcher for the Cyber Dragon package. We're only playing 2 copies of it because we're also playing Cyber Emergency, Cybernetic Horizon, both of which can search for it, so you don't need to play 3. I think 2 is fine, definitely. Basically, on summon, you search your deck for any Cyber, Spell, or Trap card while on the field its name is treated as Cyber Dragon, so it still enables your Mega Fleet and Fortress plays, and it will also search for a missing combo piece, so either your Horizon or your Realm, whichever one you don't have. Cyberdark, and of course we just have the Cyber Dragon, which just special summons itself. It's most important for its name, and that's pretty much it. Getting into the Cyberdarks, we have Cyberdark Cannon, which will discard itself to search your deck for a Cyberdark monster. You have Cyberdark Claw, which will discard itself to search your deck for a Cyberdark spell or trap card. So these 2 are your 3 ofs that you're using to search your deck for the rest of the cards. They're actually your only 3 ofs when it comes to monsters. So these guys are pretty important. They basically just help facilitate everything else around it. You've got 1 copy of each of the Cyberdarks, Horn, Edge, and Keel. I can't remember what card it is specifically, but I'm pretty sure there's a card that needs you to have monsters of different names. But either way, we just have 1 of each of them. I don't believe you need to play 1 of each of them. You can probably ditch 1 of them for a third Chimera. But again, it's entirely up to yourself. I would rather just have 1 of each. Then we've got the double Chimera. Again, sorry, I'm glossing over them. These guys are only really here for their names. That's it. They also have a normal summon effect that like boosts them up to 2400 attack. But it's very rarely comes up. They're basically just here for their names. Cyberdark Chimera then, again running 2 of, because you can search it off of Cannon, you can search it off of Horizon, you can search it off of Realm. You really don't need to run 3 of it. But basically you can discard a spell or a trap card to search your deck for Power Bond, and for the duration of that turn you can utilize your graveyard as well as your hand and field in order to conduct a fusion summon. So the idea is that you're packing your graveyard filled with Cyberdarks, you use Power Bond to fusion summon out your Cyber Darkness Dragon, which requires 5 Cyber Dark effect monsters in your grave, or hand or field to be summoned. So this guy is basically here, he searches your Power Bond and enables that graveyard to be used for fusion, and when he is sent to the graveyard he will also send a Cyber Dark monster from your deck to the graveyard, which is also really good. It basically just gives you an extra little bit of materials, so you'll usually use this guy in a Link summon alongside either Core or a Cyber Dragon in order to go into Union Carrier, which will then send another Cyberdark from deck to grave, which will usually be the all of the materials you'll need. Saber Dragon we've already talked about, and Regulus again. I dare say most people are familiar with Regulus now at this point, even though it's only been out for such a short period of time. But basically, special summon this guy to your field by targeting a machine in your graveyard, and once he's special summoned, you equip that machine onto this guy. And he basically serves as a 2800 beater, but he also has an Omni Negate. He can send a Therion monster from your hand or field, including himself, to the graveyard in order to negate the activation of a card. So he's basically just a little bit of control, a little bit of follow-up, just in case your Cyberdark plays don't go according to plan. So yeah, Therion Regulus is pretty crazy. He's sort of what's giving this deck a bit of a killer edge. Power Bond, 2 copies of Power Bond. Just on the off chance you open up with one of them, you want to be able to shuffle, you want to be able to search for one. So yeah, you basically just need to have at least one in your deck whenever you're using Chimera. So running one of, you can totally run one of, but if you open it, you're boned. So that's why I run 2 of it. You need a copy in deck. Saber Emergency, another 2 of. Just searches your deck for a Saber Dragon monster. Again, we don't really need too many copies of Saber Dragon Core because you've also got Horizon, which is searching for it. So realistically, that means we've got 7 copies of Core, which is a lot, especially considering Claw can search for Horizon and Cyberdark Realm can search for Claw. So realistically, you've got what, 7, 10, 13 copies of Saber Dragon Core. That's a lot. You don't need 3 of Emergency. You don't need 3 of Core. But that's all this card does is search for Core basically. Cybernetic Horizon. Discard either a Saber, Dragon, or Machine monster from your hand and send one from deck to graveyard that have 2 different attributes. So if you discard a dark, you have to send a light. If you discard a light, you have to send a dark. And you will search your deck for any Dragon or Machine Saber monster and add it to your hand. And then you will send from extra deck to graveyard a Machine Saber fusion monster. So basically the idea, you're going to pitch one of your Saber Darks from hand, your Saber Dragon Hers from deck. You're going to search your deck for Saber Dragon Core most of the time, or Chimera, although it's almost always Core. And then you'll send the Saber End Dragon from deck to graveyard. Because this is vital to be in your graveyard. You need to have this in grave. So basically it just searches, fills your graveyard full of materials. Because you're sending Hers, you will also get to add Saber Dragon from your deck to your hand, which gives you an extra sort of card in hand, which is useful. So yeah, Cybernetic Horizon, very, very powerful card, and it sets up your full combo. This card needs to resolve, otherwise you cannot summon your Cyberdark End Dragon. This needs to resolve. We've got 3 copies of Therion Discoloseum, basically just searches for Therion. It has a second effect where if a monster you control is destroyed by battle, you can also add a Therion monster from your graveyard back to your hand. I actually believe we saw that in the gameplay. So yeah, again, the second effect is kind of useful, but it's mainly here just to search for Regulus. And lastly, Cyberdark Realm. So this card's also very, very important. It searches your deck for any Cyberdark monster that has a different name to the cards in your graveyard. That's exactly why we needed the different names. So the card you search here has to have a different name to the cards you already have in your field or in your graveyard. That's why I knew I had a reason. So Cyberdark Realm basically searches a card and then gives you an additional normal summon. So you can activate it while face up and it will allow you to normal summon a Cyberdark monster in addition to your regular normal summoner set. So that's where sort of the combo works. Your Horizon is going to search your deck for Core, and then your Realm is going to search your deck for Chimera, and it will also allow you to normal summon your Chimera in addition to your Core. That's the idea. So yeah, that's where the full combo sort of breaks down. It's really effective. Honestly, the package is quite concise, and it does exactly what it's supposed to do. There's not really any part of the deck that there's no part of the deck that feels weak, weaker than the rest, because you're able to discard and recycle so easily. You always see the cards you need to see. The only thing is, the deck is a little bit prone to interruption. If your Horizon doesn't resolve, you're not summoning the Cyberdark End Dragon that turn, which means that you're going to be struggling. You're going to be struggling a lot. So just bear things like that in mind. But apart from that, in general, the deck feels amazing. It plays amazingly. It's very, very fun. It's not top tier. It's not going to be super competitive, but it is a blast. Getting into the extra deck then, so it's sort of a mix of fusions really here. We're playing some of the staple Cyber Dragon fusions, of course. We've got the Chimera Tech Rampage Dragon, just in case you need to beat someone's ass. Power Bond basically, Power Bond extends beyond the usage just for the Cyberdarkness Dragon. If you need to use it for something like the Rampage Dragon, you can, which on Fusion Summon will destroy a spell or a trap card on the field per material used for its summon, so it can basically nuke your opponent's back row, and it can also send up to 2 light machine monsters from your deck to the graveyard in order to gain that many additional attacks. We don't play that many light machines in the deck, so you're not going to be using that effect too often. But basically, if it can even attack twice or 3 times, Power Bond will boost its attack points up to 4200, which means a 4200 beater that can attack even twice is already a big deal, especially considering you can also boost it using Seeger. So definitely a lot of potential there for OTKs with the Rampage Dragon, but it's not a card you'll use a lot. You've got the Chimera Tech Fortress Dragon. Fortress Dragon's good in a metagame where machine monsters are at least somewhat prevalent. So in any deck that's playing Therion, in any deck that's playing ABCs, anything like that, your Fortress Dragon becomes amazing because all you do is send monsters on the field, either field from the deck to the graveyard to fusion summon it. And all it takes is Cyber Dragon plus as many machines as you can get. And it gains 1000 attack per machine sent. So it just full kaijus your opponent board. They don't get a chance to respond. There's no chain link. There's no nothing. If they're playing machines, just summon a Cyber Dragon and then all of the machines are gone. It's as easy as that. So this card definitely, it's situational of course, but really strong. Especially considering how popular Therion is going to be. Even just getting rid of Therion by itself is already really useful. Then we got the Cyber End Dragon. You will never fusion summon this. You're sending this from the extra deck to the graveyard off of your Cybernetic Horizon for your Cyberdark End Dragon, which we'll talk about in just a second. You will never ever summon this. The Cyberdarkness Dragon, we're running 2 of it as well as 2 of this card, just on the off chance things don't go well. The Cyberdarkness Dragon basically is a fusion monster of 5 Cyberdarks. When it's summoned, you will equip onto it a machine or dragon in your graveyard, and it gains attack equal to that monster's attack points. It also has a negate effect. If your opponent activates a card or effect, send an equipped card you control to the graveyard to negate that effect, which is actually really solid. That effect, you'll almost never use it, but that effect is genuinely really solid. That's why we don't mind running 2 of it, because if we absolutely must go into a second, it's actually still pretty useful. The Chimera Tech Mega Fleet Dragon, very similar to the Rampage Dragon. You basically just summon your Cyber Dragon, and then you can fusion summon it off using a monster in the extra monster zone. So if your opponent's playing like a Link monster, just immediately you're essentially kaijuing it using your Cyber Dragon and giving yourself the Mega Fleet Dragon, which is just 1200 attack per material, basically 2400 attack beater. But you're just using it basically to kaiju your opponent. And lastly, the big bad boss of the deck, the Cyberdark End Dragon, 5000 attack. You'll never actually fusion summon it. What you're going to do is use its alternative condition. You tribute a level 10 or lower Cyberdark fusion monster equipped with the Cyber End Dragon, which is going to be your Cyberdarkness Dragon. You can also technically use the Cyberdark Dragon, but it's not quite as good because you can't just directly equip the Cyber End Dragon onto this. You would need to find an alternative card to do so, because this will only target a dragon monster in your graveyard and equip it. So this doesn't quite fulfill those conditions as easily, whereas the Cyberdarkness Dragon does. And basically it's unaffected by your opponent's activated effects, which is huge, 5k beater unaffected. It can also equip from either graveyard onto itself a monster, so you can steal a monster from your opponent's graveyard if you want to, and it can attack a number of times each battle phase up to the number of cards equipped to it. Now if it doesn't have any cards equipped to it, it can attack once still, so there's not a case of like 0 attacks, but if you have 2 monsters equipped onto it, 3 monsters equipped onto it, it can attack that many times, so that makes it pretty brutal, especially in combination with things like Union Carrier. So the Cyberdark End Dragon, absolutely busted, really cool card. It's not without its outs. Of course it has outs, but it's definitely really difficult for a lot of decks to get past. Salamangreat Almirage, simply to put things like hers and whatever into the graveyard. Again, almost all of your monsters have less than 1000 attack points apart from your 2 discards, so you can send them all technically to the graveyard for Almirage if you really need to. Just an option. you've got Seeger. Seeger is one of your big link monsters. Basically, you target a machine monster with 2100 attack or more, and that monster gains 2100 attack for the rest of the turn. But neither player takes damage from Seeger for the rest of that turn, but they still take damage from the monster you boost. So absolutely, Seeger's effect is amazing. But it's just like an OTK fuel, basically. It's great in combination with Rampage Dragon. Boost this guy up to 6300 and attack twice or 3 times. Busted. Boost up your Cyberdark and Dragon to 7100. Really strong. So yeah, Seeger definitely has a place here. IP Masquerena, just a generically useful card. It's not as useful in this deck as it is in APCs, but it's definitely still a card worth including. Union Carrier, very strong in this deck, where basically you get to equip onto your Cyberdark and Dragon a dark monster or a machine monster from your deck to boost its attack points by 1000, and remember it can attack up to the number of times it has materials like equip cards. So if you have 2 equip cards onto it, say one from its own effect and one from Union Carrier, well, it can attack twice and it'll have 6000 attack. That's why the Buster Lock was initially in the deck, because you can not only boost its attack and attack multiple times, you can lock your opponent out of the extra deck. So that's just an option for you. I do like this card, I do include it, but it's not mandatory. So yeah, that's the idea behind Union Carrier. And then we just have Unicorn, Apollosa, and Access Code Talker, all as just generic link monsters that you might once in a blue moon summon. It doesn't really happen very often. This deck doesn't like spam monsters onto the board like other decks do. That's why this deck doesn't actually care about things like Max C. Like, it doesn't care about Max C. It special summons like twice. It doesn't care. The only other ways in which it special summon is if you're utilizing your other fusions or your Regulus, but for your actual core play, you normal summon this, special summon Darkness, and special summon this. So you special summon twice to summon your boss monster. That's it. So I'll give them a +2, and in return you get a 5000 unaffected beast. So you tell me. But yes, that is the full deck. There's obviously, it's not a fully competitive deck. You know, it is meant for casual, it's meant for lower ranks. Most of this is relatively cheap because it's all available in the structure deck. There's a structure deck for most of this, so it's relatively budget friendly. It's not the cheapest deck in the world because we're still using the Therion engine, we're still using some extra deck cards that are URs, we're still using the Buster Lock, so there's still URs in here that aren't in the deck, so I'm not going to call it free to play, but it is definitely more budget friendly than a lot of alternatives out there. So if you like seeing deck profiles like this, where we cover off some old fan favorites, or if we just cover off decks and make them as powerful as we possibly can, feel free to subscribe while you're here and tell me down below what exactly you'd like to see. I'd be curious to see what people are playing Therion in. I asked the same question on my ABC video, but I do want to see some of your funky decks that are maybe that little bit more powerful now that Regulus is around. You know, your machine-based strategies. Like Roids would be pretty interesting. God, when was the last time they got support? Anyway, that's everything I have to say on Cyberdarks. If you have any suggestions, let me know down below. And with that, I'll see you all in the next one. Bye bye.